The pass from Havili was magic. The shift on for Crotty. Boom, far down you go, Quackett Smith. Me, oh my, I have enjoyed that. Yes, boy.
Sit back, relax, put your belt on, enjoy.
Draft Rugby, the game they play online in heaven.
Welcome to the Draft Rugby Show, Season 5, Episode 27, the Hoodoo Guru episode. I'm joined by Nelson. Nelson, why is it the Hoodoo Guru episode?
The Hoodoo Gurus. Look, we all know it's been, 36 years, I think, since the Wallabies, that's longer than my life, have won at Eden Park, the Garden of Eden. And, I mean, after last week, we need some redemption and you know, what a better time than now to break the Hoodoo.
It's fair to say if we won last week, I would have given us zero chance of winning. So since we're all incredibly angry after the loss from last week,
it
gives us hope.
A 1%?
No, 100%.
Yeah, look, we'll take a deep dive in this ep on both of the lineups here, who's missing, who's included, what we don't think's right about these lineups. But
let's get talking about Bled too. I know that the trophy's not alive, but still worth talking about. There's been a lot of debate online about the teams that have been picked, so let's work through it.
Are we jumping across, I think, into the Aussie side? Did you have up first?
Yes, I did.
So if we jump into this side, there's not been a lot of changes. There've been a couple of forced changes. Caden Neville, or Cateran Neville, as Harry likes to call him, comes in for a Matt Phillip injury. We're pending confirmation on that injury.
Yeah, it's meant to come out later tonight, so I assume by the time that people watch this or listen to this that it will be confirmed. I know there was Rev from Rugby Fixation seemed to have the inside line on that one as well. So he was expected to play until there was an injury to rule him out, so I don't think it was a form thing.
No. And the other changes we've got in the forward pack, we've got Harry Wilson getting another chance, this time in the number 8 jersey. Yes, he's played there for the Wallabies before.
Yep.
With Valentini at 6, actually. I think it was last year against France. But good to see him back. Good to see him in his preferred 8 jersey. He brings something very different than the likes of Leota. He plays a lot more loose, destructive in open spaces, not as much of that tight kind of ball run of a Leota and even a Valentini.
Yeah, I think they're going to lose a lot in gain line, but it should be said as well that Rob Valentini is still playing. He's been shifted to number 6. Wilson, as you said, the takeaway for the last 2 seasons for him is that he needs to fix his footwork before contact so we can get through game line. But I think he's going to bring a huge work rate, which I hope means that Pete Samu gets to run a little bit more because he's in fine form running with the ball running through a few of the All Blacks defenders. But look, I think they've got enough forward carrying ability in that side.
Yeah, look, I think Harry Wilson has transitioned from 2021 to 2022 relatively well in the Super Rugby season. He had a lot less tackle busts, but he had a very high number of run meters. I think he was looking for that space and looking a little bit wider and looking for gaps and not running into contact as much as he had in the past.
Yeah, I just think, as you said, though, the balance is what the team needs. Yep. And Rob Leota isn't making any runs out wide. He's just trying to get gain line at that one-up hit off yep. of Nick White or Jake Gordon. So it'll be interesting to see how they work through that. I think the other thing to talk about in the forward pack is, I think you mentioned Caden Neville, but Jed Holloway stays at lock as well. So he's a 6/lock. We've got one true specialist lock in this side, and then losing Leota as well, another potential lock jumper as well. I think we are a little bit short on our line-out jumpers, yeah. So I'm a little bit worried about that. Obviously, Parecki's got a bit of a bullseye when he throws, but yeah, not sure exactly how they're going to manage that, and I'd expect that maybe Samu and Wilson would have to act as secondary jumpers as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Really interesting to watch how they managed that last week. They're obviously pretty aware of the fact that there was a big defensive jumping risk from the All Blacks. So they just played trick play after trick play after trick play. I don't know if they can get away with that 2 weeks in a row, but loved seeing it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting concept. I think that sort of stuff can only work if the other team doesn't see it coming. And they don't need to know trick plays coming. They need to know exactly what's coming. So I think you can still get away with it occasionally, but they will have to look to the air a little bit more.
Yep. Moving to the back line, Jake Gordon and Bernard Foley get another crack at 9 and 10, meaning Nick White is on the bench. You've got Lalakai Feketi, Lenny Katau again staying in the centres. Cotton Betty will play his last test, I believe, of the year on the left wing. And then they've kept Tom Wright and Andrew Kellaway. So essentially unchanged. What do you think about that?
Look, I'm happy for the stability. There's been a lot of changes throughout the last couple of years. It doesn't mean that this is the side you're walking into the World Cup, grand final with if we get there. But I think it's good to have some stability after last week, and these guys deserve another crack.
Yeah, my big worry here is that we have no long range kickers whatsoever. I think that if you're going to play a Bernard Foley with Kellaway at 15 rather than a Reece Hodge, you're going to take away 2 long kickers. You have to put Nick White in to start. So I'm a little bit worried about how we're going to manage our line out and how we're going to actually manage the long kicking game for possession. So, I think if the All Blacks can be disciplined, we're going to really dig ourselves into a bit of a hole here where we might be facing a lot of time in our own 22, our own half.
Interestingly, I thought a similar thing last week, but it didn't necessarily pan out that way. Both teams look to play quite open, expansive footy and weren't necessarily looking to trust their lineouts too much and do other things around that. So I think, our game plan isn't kick it out constantly and work our way up the field that way.
Yeah.
But we still managed to get out of our 22 quite well.
In the second half,
and some better kicks
in the second half. Yeah.
Look,
first half, mate, we defended the whole half.
I think we need to get Hodge at some point, and he can help us close that game out if the game's tight. But I just want to see these guys have another crack. I do think it's something that's missing for us, that kicking game for sure.
Yeah. On the bench, you got Falau Fainga. Angus Bell is back from his toe injury and Pone Fa'amalsili, which means we think Taniela Tupou mustn't be right.
Yeah, I thought he was named to play, basically saying he was cleared and he was good to go, but he hasn't been named here. I'm happy to see Pone get another crack, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Rounding out the forward reserves, you got Nick Frost getting another run off the bench and Fraser McBride.
Yeah, I think they're both impact players, and I think it'll be really good to see them come on. In terms of the benchies that we have in the back, we've got Nick White, who you touched on earlier. He really made that back line more composed, I think, when he came on last week, and his kicking was good. Reece Hodge and Jordan Pataya, so a fair bit of versatility in that back two. Yeah,
and obviously a lot of people calling for Vunivalu to get a start as well. He's been named in the Australia A side, so hopefully, as a few people have been saying, he does get to play just 3 lots of 80 minutes in that competition when they go over to Japan, and then we can see him playing a little bit more for the Wallabies in the Northern Tour. I don't mind Jordan Pataya as an impact player. I think he's actually really effective as a man that they bring off the bench late. I do just think that someone needs to put a bit more pressure on Tom Wright. He had a few excellent games early in the Rugby Championship. I think he's been a little bit flat, makes a few too many mistakes. Discipline's not great. Just needs to clean up his act, and a little bit more pressure on that right wing would be a good thing. Having said that, I'm with you. I don't mind the fact that we're just leaning into the cohesion factor as well and trying to build some combinations. I know Rennie was quoted during the week saying that there's been so many injuries that it has been hard for him to pick similar sides week on week. So good to see that in the backs when he has the opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's a strength for us this week, that just continuity from last week. But for me, if I had to make one change, it's probably Vunivalu coming in for Tom Wright. But I agree, having that 3-week test against Japan is going to be good for him.
Yep, absolutely. Next on, we're going to go to the All Black side.
Yep.
So clicking over there, you got Ethan de Groot, Cody Taylor straight back in at hooker, and Tyrell Lomax, so similar props. You got Brody Retallick and Sam Whitelock in the row. And then you got Akira Ioane, Dalton Papali'i, and Artie Sevilla rounding out the forward pack. Good to see Artie back for everyone. I mean, I love watching Artie play, just not against the Wallabies, so it's good to see him, but hopefully he has a quiet game. Maybe he's a bit distracted, not getting enough sleep with the new baby.
No, we can only hope. we can only hope, because he is an absolute menace both sides of the ball. If we look in the back line, we've got Aaron Smith, Richie Moe, the same as last week. Even number 11, Caleb Clark. The changes start at the 12 jersey with Jordan Barrett shifting in, Big Geordie playing 12. What do you think of that?
Look, I really like it. I think Ability's been excellent, but obviously you're not fit this week. So yeah. I really like him getting the opportunity there, and I want to see how he goes. I'm a bit torn because I don't want him to go well against us, but I want him to get more time at 12 for the All Blacks. And I don't think both those things can happen.
Look, I think this is where his jersey probably sits in the All Blacks, but he needs some time developing there. So it's going to be a real test for him. Outside him, Rico Ioane, that's going to take a lot of attention off him as well. You just give the ball to Rico is never a bad thing. We've got Will Jordan, sadly, still on the wing. This is the time you needed to shift him to fullback, and Bodie Barrett coming in at fullback. So a lot of changes in that back line.
Yeah, massive. And I mean, I think all of us were thinking Geordie to 12 so that Jordan can have the 15 jersey. They moved Geordie to inside centre, and then they don't actually give Jordan the fullback jersey. So that's just lunacy to me, but it's going to be interesting to see how they go with the dual pivot, Richie Moe and Bodie Barrett again. If we just talk about the outs and the changes in the forward pack, though, Cody Taylor gets his chance. He's obviously been dropped from the 23 for a long period of time. I don't think he had an injury either. So to me, Samasoni Takiaho is on the bench. He has had a huge workload, been exceptional for the All Blacks all test season. So it's going to be good to see him get a little bit of a rest. I don't think that they're dropping him, as so many people are maybe suggesting. And Cody Taylor, for me, is a better player than Dane Coles at this time in their careers. So I'm excited to see Cody Taylor get another run, and probably worthy of the choice, in my opinion.
Interestingly, in that tight 5, that's the only change. Last week, we actually saw the All Blacks win 2 of 5 of their own scrums, which is pretty baffling. That's quite low for them for having such a strong forward pack. And I thought that the scrum sort of went back and forth a little bit more than that, but obviously it was a little bit of a weak point for them. Takiaho is an absolute, barnstorming hooker as well. Ball in hand, he's very, very solid. We've also got Ofa Tuangafasi, Nepo Laolala on the bench as well.
Offa and Nepo are both obviously coming back from injuries.
Yep.
I was seeing some chat on social media, on Twitter, mainly saying, I thought we were past these guys. Why are we bringing them back in? For me,
they need them.
Nepo is the best prop in New Zealand by a country mile.
Yeah.
He's an absolute weapon. And Offa has had a pretty off year from his scrummaging, I think, and probably less effective in that area than what he has been. I'm assuming they're moving him to the loose side of their scrum this side. Yep. So maybe a little bit less pressure on him there. But around the ground, he's phenomenal as well. So to me, they're both fantastic props. And that worries me, to be honest with you. I would far rather face last week's reserve props than this week's.
Yeah, look, De Groot, Lomax, these guys are really quite inexperienced when you're talking props. So having this experience coming off the bench is a real strength for them. They've also got Tupo Vai on the bench and Hoskins Satutu. Both of those could cover, 6, 6 and 8. But my guess is that obviously Tupo Vai is there to cover one of the lock roles, potentially 6 if needed. You've also got Hoskins Satutu to cover, number 8 if Artie shifts in, or at worst he could cover 6 as well.
Yeah, no Scott Barrett this week. I can't remember if he was one of the injuries or not.
I think they've got a Barrett, limit. There's only about 2 Barretts on the field.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sam Cane missing with injury, with concussion. So Dalton Papali'i gets his chance because of that. To me, I've been calling for this for 3 seasons, I think now.
Same.
Maybe 2. I'll say 2 seasons. Before that, it was Artie to 7.
Yeah.
I think this is fantastic for the All Blacks. And, I and not to take away from Sam Cane, he has had a couple of good games this year, I should say, as well. But Dalton's the future. Awesome opportunity. And when you're rounded out by Artie, can't be anything but a positive. I thought Hoskins Satutu on the bench, as you mentioned, was pretty average last week.
Yep.
Not very effective with his runs. Missed a few key tackles, which is just not what I expect to see from him. I think he's still a little bit daunted by the task.
I think that's what it is. He still seems a little rattled and not settled into this level because we all know what he can do. And he's versing the same players that he's done it against, all through Super Rugby.
Yeah.
It's just this stage seems like a step up for him mentally.
Yeah, Akira Ioane slides in at 6 for dog roll. So I thought he was, I guess, a little quiet coming off the bench as well, but he's just a player that we've loved watching for so many years. I hope we get to see more of him. And again, I hope he has a good game. Not too good a game this week, but I hope he gets more time and earns himself the opportunity to keep getting minutes at 6.
That back row battle is definitely giving a real contest, I reckon.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes when they maybe were losing the physical battle early in the rugby championships with someone like Akira, Lomax in there as well. There's a couple of players there that maybe weren't consistently winning that physicality. So we'll be interested to see how they step up in that area.
Yep, yeah, definitely.
Aaron Smith and Richie Moe, we talked about them, consistency there. We raved about them over and over again. Fantastic players. Caleb Clark and Will Jordan staying on the wings. I thought defensively they've both been relatively poor. So I think that this is lining us up for another high-scoring affair, hopefully.
Look, I think the continuity in this back line, plus, some weaknesses on those wingers in recent weeks for defence, this looks like a high-scoring match. This is the All Blacks have gone, let's get as much talent on the field as possible.
Yeah.
And that's what they've done. And honestly, I think there are some positions there to exploit for the Wallabies if they're playing smart footy.
And for everything we can criticise about their defence, we can just praise about their attack. They're two attacking absolute freaks, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Bodie Barrett in at 15. I've never been convinced that he does that well in that position. It's going to be interesting to see if he can kind of prove himself there.
Look, I love the idea on paper of Mo'unga and Barrett swapping and going back and forth, two tandem kind of 10s at times, or Barrett taking his choices and picking off opportunities throughout a match. But I just haven't seen it work between these two. I don't think there's any connection between them. So it's more about Bodie going, now I feel like give me the ball, it's going to be me time, which maybe works for him with a little bit more space. But he hasn't been playing 15, so picking off those opportunities isn't going to come as naturally from that position for me. So he definitely can carve us apart, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
I think with those two and Geordie as well in the playmaker positions, it just screams that there's going to be a huge amount of ball to the outside backs, to the wingers and to Rico. So I hope that doesn't kind of come to fruition this week, because that would be quite a scary thought. But if it does work, having those guys as 1, 2 and 3 for the early passes, it's just going to be, so much space for the likes of Will Jordan to do what he did to us last week.
Yep.
On the bench, Finlay Christie, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and Sevu Reece. I think the big one here for me is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck finally gets a run. You just hope that maybe he gets 30 minutes in at 12 rather than 90 seconds or whatever we gave to Vunivalu.
Oh, no, it's ridiculous. Look, the thing that works here for Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is the people he's got around him. He's got Caleb Clark, he's got Beauden Barrett, he's got Rico Ioane, he's got some familiar faces around him. Yeah. And hopefully that settles him into this role well for them. Not too well, as we keep touching on. But I think he's a really skilled player, and I hope he's not overawed by this situation for him.
I think what we're going to see in the back end of the game is you're going to have the Blues backline, basically. Finlay Christie into Bodie Barrett at 10. You're going to have Tuivasa-Sheck and Rico at 12, 13, and Caleb Clark on the left wing. The only other two there, you've got, I think Geordie Barrett probably moves back to fullback, or they move Jordan back to fullback, and then Sevu Reece comes on for one of those two. So a couple of Crusaders outside backs. Richie Moe will be subbed off, and Tuivasa-Sheck's going to be given every chance to have a team around him that he will thrive with.
Something that the Wallabies haven't done well with some of our players. I think James O'Connor, those sorts. So I really like that he's supported by some Blues players.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, the big takeaway here, I think, is that there's a lot of rest there for a couple of the players with big workloads. You're looking like Dog Roll. You're looking at Samasani Takaaho as well. I think they're giving opportunity where they're able to. It's good to see the likes of Offa and Nepo back. There's plenty of players coming in and out because of fitness on both sides. It's going to be a very, very good matchup. How do you see it going, and where are the, opportunities? Does the game need to be played?
Look, I'd feel crazy to say the Wallabies are going to win, so I'm just going to say the Wallabies are going to win.
Yeah,
we need a bonus point win here.
And how are they going to win? How are they going to win?
Oh, look, I think, interestingly, we touched on that the line-out isn't a real strength, and we've had to kind of manipulate how we use that. And I don't think that's going to be as easy for us to do this week. But obviously, against the All Blacks, you can't be kicking the ball in field and giving them too much space. So Gordon is really going to have a solid kicking game. I think Bernard Foley's going to have a solid kicking game at picking off the right angles, the right spaces on the field to get this ball downfield. And we're going to have some rush defence, Korobidi getting up their face like we saw last week, and this whole back line, manning up and getting up in these situations.
I just think they need discipline as well, the Wallabies. Like, you just can't give opportunity and field position to the All Blacks. And if you do give them that, they're just going to score way too many points. We obviously had a couple of yellows down to 13 men for a period last week, and I thought we were pretty lucky to get away with them scoring. It was a couple of tries in that period.
2 or 3.
Could have been many more had they held the ball. So you just got to make sure that you're very tight on your discipline and your kicking game's accurate. And I think the other thing is I'm just interested to see how the All Blacks play. 1 week they have a tremendous short kicking game that really confuses and tears apart defences, and then the next week they put it to bed. I thought last week they probably didn't kick quite as actively as they had in the first 2 good wins they had in the Rugby Championship. So it's going to be interesting to see if they bring that back out again this week.
Yeah, and I think Iceman, Bernard Foley, he's got a second chance here, and we're going to have to take points on offer throughout this match.
And my final question to you before we get on to the tip is going to be, and the margin is going to be, how many penalties this week for time wasting?
Look, I'm going to go off laws of averages, and I'm going to say 0.
Right.
You know what? Put it this way: French referee, been in the headlines. Will he try to make up for it, or make a stand again this week in a call off TMO? Just be like, nah, or call something random out that doesn't want to get.
Raynell's an assistant ref this week. He's on the sideline.
I thought his TMO.
No. He's the assistant ref. So I think it's a big call for him to come in as assistant
wait,
ref.
no,
Radio in. No, mate, that's been too long.
Waving his flag from the side. He's going to be calling everything out. Calling the ref over.
Is that a French bag out there, mate?
It's going to be a white flag that he's waving around. But no, look, I think this is going to be an absolute cracker. I think one thing for this for me as well is the amount of people talking about rugby after this last Bledisloe. So if you're not strapped in to watch this one, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm going to tip we've called it the Hoodoo Guru show. So I'm going to say the Wallabies are going to get it done by 6 points.
I love it. I really love it. And look, as we said, it's the Hoodoo Gurus. I've been thinking of this for days. So I'm going to say the Wallabies are going to sneak this one, and they're going to win it by 1 point with a Hodge kick from about 45, 50 out.
Love it. Join us next week when we kind of pull apart the Rugby Championship, assess where the 4 teams are. We're going to hopefully have some good guests along who know far more about rugby and analysing rugby than us. So I guess hopefully building a little bit of excitement for that. You don't have to listen to just us again next week. And I guess one other question, Nels, South Africa versus Argentina. Who wins that, and therefore who wins the Rugby Champs? Where do you see it going?
Look, I think it's probably South Africa. I think if we can manage to keep this one tight and this game doesn't blow out significantly, meaning the All Blacks don't get a bonus point, or we sneak our win, like we're saying, I think the Box can, all they really need to do is get a win, maybe a bonus point. I think against the
I think they need to beat there.
But I mean, if we follow how this year's gone so far, each team's beating each other once.
Yeah, let's not ruin it now, to be honest. That's the one thing I would
That's
say.
Fair.
Yeah, even points for New Zealand and South Africa. So I guess if one team gets the bonus point and the other doesn't, it's a done deal. 13 points is the margin difference as well. So very doable because we're going to knock New Zealand down 6 points.
I was going to say, so if we ignore everything we've been saying, the All Blacks are probably going to win the comp. But if we're listening to what we've been saying, the Pumas, maybe they can push the Box, but the Box are going to win the comp.
Australia bonus point win the comp off the back of that. That's how I see it going.
Yeah, Pumas beat the Box.
Yeah, absolutely.
But neither of them can get a bonus point loss.
All right, with that genius insight, everyone will be criticising us when they listen to this, but praising us when they see the results this weekend. We will leave it there.
Hooroo.